Becoming HIPAA security compliant. Now that you've learned all the details about HIPAA, let's take a look at what you actually need to do to ensure and maintain compliance. So far, we've learned that HIPAA is a US federal law that ensures the privacy and security of patients' health information and gives patients the rights over their health information. The HIPAA privacy rule involves ensuring the privacy and security of the PHI from a people standpoint, as well as endorsing patient rights. The HIPAA security rule involves ensuring the privacy and security of PHI from an IT standpoint. Why does HIPAA matter and why should you care? There are many reasons to care, such as financial penalties, bad press could lead to loss of market share and have negative impact on the brand value, loss of accreditation, late compliance efforts could lead to increased capital cost due to corrective action plans, litigation damages, and imprisonment. HIPAA security has two main objectives: to ensure that ePHI is not stolen, misused, or hacked, for example, including firewalls, antivirus softwares, strong and unique usernames, and passwords, etc. To ensure that ePHI is not destroyed and available, for example, including data backups, using antivirus softwares, disaster recovery, and contingency plans. The HIPAA security rule was designed to be technologically neutral, flexible, and scalable so that the organizations can implement policies, procedures, and technologies that are appropriate according to their size, structure, and daily operations as long as they meet the requirements. Complying with the security rule. Implement these three important steps in your practice to comply with the security rule. The compliance officer can assign an individual who will be responsible for implementing and overseeing HIPAA security compliance at the organization. Identify gaps and fix. Conduct a risk assessment to corroborate your facilities, technical infrastructure, and security safeguards against the HIPAA security standards to identify gaps and vulnerabilities and remediate them. This entire process should be performed at least once a year. Formal documentation and controls. If you have access or maintain PHI, make formal documents and implement controls to protect the information. This includes developing policies and procedures and documents as per the required HIPAA standards. Common HIPAA violations. Communicating through conventional and unsecured platforms such as using gmail.com, AOL.com, or even Facebook, and not using HIPAA-compliant corporate email for PHI. Not keeping proper documentation of HIPAA compliance efforts, not executing business associate agreements with vendors before providing access to PHI, posting a patient's images or videos, or even gossiping about patients on social media platforms without their written permission, sending PHI to the wrong patient or person via fax, email, or mail, not retaining medical records as per the HIPAA minimum retention period, not notifying patients and HHS when a breach occurs, not providing copies of PHI to the patients on request, unencrypted laptops, smartphones, tablets, etc. being lost or stolen leading to PHI breach. Reasonable, flexible, and common sense. It is important to note that both the HIPAA privacy rule and the HIPAA security rule were designed to be reasonable and flexible to the account for the nature of each organization's culture, size, and resources. Each organization will have the flexibility to use discretion to determine its own privacy policies and security practices within the context of the HIPAA compliance requirements and its own capabilities and needs. A good rule of thumb to remember here is when in doubt, wear the common sense hat. For example, if you're not sure about whether an implementation specification is appropriate and reasonable for your practice, just implement it. The key to successfully maintaining HIPAA compliance. Corporate culture. HIPAA is not a one-shot implementation project. HIPAA compliance is a continuous process where the program must be properly developed, monitored, and maintained, and needs to be the part of the corporate culture. Education. The transition to HIPAA compliance will become easier and more successful when everyone understands why and what changes are going to take place. Commitment. HIPAA compliance will largely depend on the acceptance of the entire staff of an organization. Embracing HIPAA. The secret to embracing HIPAA is realizing that HIPAA has just adopted many of the best practices already implemented in other industries. Most of the HIPAA requirements are the things you would already want to implement in your practice to safeguard your patient's health information and to protect data from loss or theft. At some point in our lives, we are all patients and we would want our sensitive personal health information to be protected at all times. You've successfully reached the end of Chapter 5. Congratulations!